So a deep and heavy back squat is the epitome of strength and control prowess. And although a complete ass to grass squat is not something that we will all be capable of, we should all be able to achieve a good looking below parallel or maybe at parallel back squat. So in this video, we're gonna go over some of the main things that you should work on if this is a goal of yours. We'll discuss some simple anatomy and then we'll dive into hip and ankle mobility, which I think are two of the main drivers for depth. So first, let's discuss some healthy expectations. You know, at the end of the day, the maximum depth that you're capable of is simply going to be dictated by some physiological proportions. As you may know, shorter limb athletes will have an easier time squatting. This is especially true if their torso happens to be slightly longer and if their legs are more or less equally segmented, especially if the tibia happens to be a little longer than the femur. On the other hand, longer limb athletes will always struggle a little bit squatting. You know, especially if their torso happens to be a little shorter. This will force them into a more steep forward angle as they go down into the squat, which is a really bad position for squatting. Now, there's not really a reason to go out there and measure yourself because it's not really gonna change anything. But if you're interested about your hip anatomy, there's actually a test that you can do to kind of get an idea of where you're at. Simply stand up or lay down and try bringing your knee to your chest. Now, if you feel an impingement in the front of your hip or some pain, try moving your leg to the side. And you'll probably see that you're gonna instantly gain a few inches of mobility. In simple terms, all that this test tells us is the fact that you will see benefits from opening up your toes when you're squatting. So let's talk about your stance. I think the easiest way to figure out what your stance is to simply get comfortable in the bottom position. So take some time to simply sit down in the bottom. Try different positions for your feet, opening up your feet, closing your feet, getting the toes out, toes parallel, whatever it is, just find the stance that fits you the most. If you're a taller athlete, you will more than likely have to use a wider stance with a decent amount of toe flare. This is just how it is. You can go out and find exceptions to this rule, but more than likely they're just that, exceptions. So take a few minutes to find a comfortable space down there and just sit there. Zach Toller has a few videos talking about sitting there for 3 to 5 minutes every single day. And I can personally tell you that doing that does work. Like, it will help you get comfortable in that position. Things will burn, you know, your hip will burn, your calves will burn, you know, but it will help you get comfortable in that position. Use shoes, don't use shoes, use support, don't use support. You don't even have to do 5 minutes at a time. You can take some breaks, just try to accumulate time in that bottom position. And don't stress too much with your low back flexing when you're at the bottom of this position. Just get down there, spend some time in there, and learn to get comfortable. Now let's talk about mobility. I think this is often the main limiter for most people. Let's first define mobility and flexibility. Mobility is your ability to take a joint through its full range of motion. On the other hand, flexibility is simply the ability that the muscles, ligaments, and tendons have to stretch. You do not need to be flexible in order to have a good squat. I'm a prime example of this. I, for all intents and purposes, have pretty decent mobility, but I actually can't even touch my toes. Not saying this is a great thing and it's something that that's not true. I'm not working on it at all right now. But anyways, for a deep squat, we will mainly be looking at the hips and the ankles. The main limiters in these joints are usually impingements. These occur when, for whatever reason, the joint has become compressed over time. So throughout all these drills, all we're trying to do is simply release some tension in the joint and bring back its natural range of motion. In addition to this, one pretty quick thing that you can do before you get into all of this is to simply test the surrounding areas to see if anything might just be overly tight. Don't be discouraged from using soft tissue mobilization if something's sore or achy, okay? Just don't overdo it. Don't spend 30 minutes with a foam roller. Just use them to kind of take care of those things that just happen to be overly tight or achy, and then get on with your workout. For squatting, just make sure to loosen up your calves and tibia, your glutes, your quads, your hamstring, and your low back. I usually like the main things that get overly tight, and make sure you hit your glute medius. It's one muscle that most people tend to skip. For the ankles, we first want to check if there is a problem. The easy way to do this is by setting your foot a thumbs away from the wall, and then seeing if you can touch your knee while keeping your heel down. If you can't, then start doing this. Place a band at the joint of the tibia and the foot, and elevate the foot some. Then place a great degree of tension on the band, and slowly work to move deeper and deeper into the position. Try to relax during these drills and settle into the positions. If you're feeling some impingements, either apply more tension or just back off some and start slower. Sets of 15 to 30 seconds at first, moving up to a minute will usually be good, and 3 to 5 sets per leg is usually more than enough. As you progress, use less tension, use smaller bands, or just get rid of the bands entirely. For the hips, the concept is the same. We want to use tension to open the joint. So this time you will stretch the band from the side and move your knee in. Again, move gently and softly. You might even hear some pops here. This should not really be painful though. Work to be able to rotate your knee in and lean forward without any pain or feelings of impingement. If you feel these, either add more tension or back off slightly and try to move in slower. The same standard sets apply here. As you progress, we want to keep opening the hips and start moving them closer to the ground. Note that the goal here is to get the hips closer to the ground and not the torso. You can eventually ditch the band too. Finally, for a squat progression. As you work towards a deeper squat, just keep in mind that your goal should be to maximally flex the knee joint while keeping tension on your back. This will be your deepest squat, and as your mobility improves and you become more comfortable on that bottom position, this should continue to improve. A slight degree of flexion is not inherently wrong, but do not compromise your back to reach a deeper squat. Take the time to put in the work, be conscious of your mobility, and continue building over a solid foundation. At the end of the day, mobility is extremely important, but the main driver towards improving your squat depth and weight will probably just be squatting a lot. As long as you can do it safely and without pain, just continue squatting and getting better at it. Be willing to put in the work and squat a lot. And that's the video. So please feel free to let me know if you have any questions in the comments, or if anything that I said confused you. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. As always, I hope you got something out of this video, and yeah, thanks for watching.
It is important to draw wisdom from many different places. If we take it from only one place, it becomes rigid and stale. Understanding others, the other elements, and the other nations will help you become whole.